I'm in Westminster, Colorado on my way down south to Fountain, Colorado, which is just south of Colorado Springs. All in all, it's about 119 miles. I'm looking at like 9 to 10 hours. It's definitely gonna be wet, but I'm really hoping I don't get any of this hail that the weather report is showing. When you're on longer rides like this, it's important to think about layering, especially if you're gonna be cycling for 9 or 10 hours. Weather could change a lot, especially if you live in Colorado. So when I think about layering, it's in 3 different layers. You have your wicking layer, which is a t-shirt like I'm wearing now, or a cycling jersey. Something that's gonna pull the perspiration off your body. Definitely not cotton. The second layer is a warmth layer. Depending on the time of year, that can look like a lot of different things. Today, we're in July and Colorado, so I'm gonna do this option here, which is a long sleeve with a little bit of insulation. I sweat a lot, so I don't need a ton of insulation, especially if I'm cycling. And the third and final layer is the weather layer. That's gonna keep the water and the hail, hopefully, and everything else off you, the weather. So it's wicking, warmth, and weather layers. Another very important thing to think about ahead of time before you hit the trail is nutrition. If your nutrition is off, it's gonna make the ride way more difficult than it needed to be. And I think about nutrition in 3 different categories. I've got the protein category, the salt, and the sugar. And when I think about protein, I try to do 1 bar an hour. And I like to switch it up a little bit, have a little variety. Otherwise it kind of gets old eating the same bar over and over again. But these are the 3 things your body is going to need most. It's protein, sugar, and salt. On your first century ride, expect something to go wrong. Maybe 2 things, 3 things to go wrong, and that's fine. That's really part of the adventure. And that's something I'm reminded of as I head up here, because looks like this road is closed. Yep, definitely not going that way. There's one big ass hole, and as I walk towards it, there are these deep whoomp sounds, and I'm definitely not going that way. So hopefully there's a way to reroute and keep heading south. There aren't many roads heading south to parallel I-25, so I'm not sure this is gonna be doable, but if it is, I'll figure it out. There wasn't really a good spot to cross and no other alternate routes, so I ended up walking along the shore and finally found a spot that looked like I could cross for the first hole, which wasn't that bad, but the second hole ended up in waist deep water and felt like a couple times like the water wanted to pull my bike downstream, but ended up making through. And those mosquitoes though, man, those guys were hungry. And so am I. I'm gonna Google a Mexican restaurant in the area because a big burrito with a margarita sounds really good right now. Which is one of the great parts of trips like this, is eating food, because your body needs it. And after a while, you get sick of eating just protein bars and sugar. So I'm gonna Google a Mexican restaurant in the area and see what I come up with. A trip like this, where there's a lot of rights and lefts, missing one of those rights or lefts could result in an extra half an hour or hour added to your day, which is not what you want to do. So I like using a bike computer if you can afford one of those. My personal favorite is the Hammerhead, the Karoo 2. That tells me exactly where I need to go with notifications when I need to take a left or a right. If you are using a smartphone, I recommend downloading a GPX map of your route. That way, the map is actually on your phone and Google Maps isn't zapping energy from your phone for hours at a time. On this trip, I'm cycling down to my folks' place, so I don't need to bring my camping gear or a lot of extra other stuff I would need otherwise, which is nice. And I suggest your first 100-mile trip that you don't plan on camping. Because camping requires a whole lot more stuff when it comes to food, the ability to cook, tents, and all sorts of other stuff that you really don't want to worry about on your first century ride. Normally, I would just bring a Camelback, but on this trip, I'm filming it, so I have all my film gear, and I'm also staying at my folks' place for a few days, so I have extra clothes. At times, your body's gonna hurt, you're gonna be frustrated, wonder why you're doing it, but it's important to remember to enjoy the ride, because it is an adventure, there are gonna be unknowns, but just get out there, get after it, and give it a try.